And Matt, remind me, where are you based out of?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis. Okay.
Where are
Sweet.
you at?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I
So I'll
uh
say I've never been to St. Louis, but I've heard good things about it.
I could talk. I've traveled quite a bit actually, so I can compare a little bit. I haven't been to North Carolina. I've been to Charleston, South Carolina. I've been to
Charleston's awesome.
I love Charleston. I
Yeah.
would say where I live in St. Louis is like
Mhm.
Charleston
Oh, cool.
historically and sort of like aesthetically, because I'm on the
Yeah.
west side of St. Louis. So it's very similar, like our downtown Main Street, St. Charles, St. Louis is very similar to like the Charleston Strip, just
Oh,
without the
cool.
ocean. Instead of the ocean, it's the Missouri River,
Mhm.
and it's just not the same, obviously. Um, but it is for people that have been there, it's like it's a pretty solid comparison. It's a lot smaller,
Right.
obviously, but like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting. Nothing quite compares to Charleston. The closest thing to it is Savannah, Georgia. But for
okay,
my money, I like Charleston a lot more. Charleston's my number one place if when I choose to travel somewhere. Um, but yeah, I was about to say in North Carolina, it's you have a ton of diversity because you have yeah, I actually grew up in the western side of the state, like near Asheville. And so
okay,
you have a ton of that's the mountains, and then about 3 hours from that to the east is some of the bigger cities like Charlotte, Raleigh, and then even further to east are the actual beach towns, but they're more like Wilmington has a little bit of that historic feel to it, but I mean nothing like Charleston. Charleston's like another
yeah, it
level.
is super unique. It's sort of the I don't know, yeah. I like talking about this stuff because it makes you try to get down to like what is it that just makes like an old Spielberg opener movie of just like what
Yeah,
is Americana or like what is it that we all
right.
like enjoy? Like why am I here? You know, it's
And
like
why
what
is it?
is
Why does it feel
life?
gone?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and what
so
happened to it?
right.
It's as if the if you go back and watch movies from the 70s and 80s and obviously older, especially if they're trying to portray just a typical American family.
Right,
It's never just the family. It's like the whole neighborhood. Like
right.
the and it's as if everyone's involved in or even just, the kind of the small town dramas or like high school. It's like
Yeah,
everything is all like interrelated. I know this family and or whatever. And that's like what we all sort of strive for is sort of the actual just like
yeah,
a greater, stronger community to where you actually talk to your neighbors and even if you're not even friends with your neighbors, like you're actually
right.
pissed off that they're like using the remote to change your TV and you're just like, oh, they did it again. He's trying to watch the other game or whatever. And just that kind of weird dramas to where like you're kind of
Right.
more involved in other people's lives instead of your own. It's like that's kind of what you. There's like someone that did a study on it, or it's a book that's called The Fourth Turning. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I haven't.
it's kind of coming be famous again. It was written years and years ago, but it was based upon sort of that all nations and all across the world are in basically 80 to 100 year cycles and there's four
Oh,
cycles into that are what they call like or there's 80 to there's four turnings that turn into one cycle and at the fourth turning is like a major when it restarts and it
right. Huh.
we're at what they call the fourth turning right now. But the interesting aspect about it is it
Oh
shows that
gosh.
basically the 80 to 100 years is like one lifetime. So, like every four lifetimes, everything just like restarts. And it's as if like
Hmm.
me and my kids are going to be like a part of like a
Hmm.
generation that's going to do a certain thing that feels a certain way. And like I forget which turn it is, but everyone is sort of it's like that meme, good people create bad situations or strong men or whatever it
Right.
is. There's a certain uh like zeitgeist of a certain turning that's basically just content and it's like the American 1950s where it's
Hmm.
like peak just like everything's good. You know, we just had a war, and now we're
Right.
everything's relaxed, and everybody has jobs and money, and we're doing things, and we're building stuff. And then
Right.
right after that, you can see it in our film and our books is the generation where everybody's almost like everything was so good at the generation before it. So like the generation of
Mhm.
like the boomers when they were kids,
Right.
their kids then like Gen X had it just so good that their complaints were just that things were too boring. And you can see that in
Right.
movies like
Like Fight
there's
Club.
yes, exactly to where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just another American suburb kid
It's funny when he
being
complained about his
annoying.
corporate job. A lot of kids
Yeah.
my age, there's a great, I'm 25, but um, there's a great sort of study that showed that millennials would rather choose a job that they felt fulfilled in rather than a job that paid a lot. And my generation was the inverse. They would rather have a
Yeah.
job that paid a lot versus fulfilled. And I think it's easily shown like Fight Club, where like he's complete, he's like, oh, this job is like, I just feel nothing. And I'm not me, but a lot of people in my generation, I know for a fact, are like, shut up, stop complaining. You have a cushy job. Your
Yeah,
finances are pretty much
exactly.
taken care of. Yeah.
No,
So,
that's the argument
mm,
of sort of this whole that whole book, the fourth turning.
mm,
There's more than one argument, but one of the things was just like how kind of when if you just think about it on a more simplified version, it's like you once you overcome something, the generation that you have, like your kids, they don't know what you overcame. So, like,
mm,
if you went through the hard struggles, you spend the rest of your life, if you struggled as a kid, to like make sure your kids never struggle like that. And
right.
then if your kids never experience that struggle, they might not even, they might know it exists because you talk about it. But by the time your kids are born, they don't even they're no longer connected to the struggle that their grandparents went through, just like us, like not knowing what it was like to go through whatever
Right. The
the
Great Depression
hardships
or
of the
anything like, yeah.
1930s or any of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we just it's just not even in our realm. So to us, like our problems are they're still there, but they're just a different type. And
Okay.
usually that's where there's like controversy about it, but often after that complacency is an actual upturning where you have real problems again.
Right.
And somebody has to go through the hard parts. And that's actually my generation's and yours. I think kind of just it's not really the a millennial boomer thing. It's really more about like a longer stretch of time.
Mm,
Compared to the way we think of generations. It's more like multiple generations are actually all a part of a certain turning, and it's more about which portion of your life are you going through a certain greater if there's different
right.
wheels of time if I'm the moon or whatever and then the earth is spinning there's a greater thing that's spinning and it's like where you're aligned and all that
Hmm.
affects how you are as you grow up and how you raise your kids and yeah we're about to go through and as we're going through now you're seeing it with like
Yeah.
COVID, I think, was the big thing that people were like, "Oh,
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
it,"
COVID
you
was
know.
insane.
And now
Yeah.
we're basically in World War III, so that's like, yeah, we're right in the heap of it
Oh,
all.
yeah. Jeez. I've been trying to stay away from it, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe that's not the most responsible thing. I'm just, oh
Oh,
gosh.
just the news or in general.
Yeah, the news I deal with Iran going on right now. The whole, yeah, it's just,
Yeah, I'm actually good. I lived off the grid for quite a few, not
oh
completely
my
off the
gosh.
grid, but like I didn't have a phone or I had a computer with no internet access, and I had basically a track phone that was never on
Oh,
for about 5 years. Whenever I lived out, and I lived in Yellowstone National Park and in Montana for like 5 years, at working seasonal jobs, and
oh,
like we didn't do nothing except for travel and kick it, and like we would just like pop in to call. I literally called my parents from like payphones, and there would be like one. I don't even know if they have payphones anywhere else really anymore, but they still had them in the park because they didn't have cell
wow.
phones.
Oh my gosh. And
So
what made
yeah,
you
like
want
tapping in, people being like, "Do you pay attention to the news?" I'm like, I never cared. I now you're kind of forced to it because I'm
yeah,
on YouTube and Twitter. It's
yeah,
inescapable, and so. But yeah,
yeah.
anyway.
It's bizarre because now we're in a weird culture of either you're on, I'm not going to name names for these people, but you're in a culture where it's if you do not agree 100% with side A, you're gone. You're like just thrown to the side. It's just the
I know,
whole.
yeah, it's really hard for
It's
me. Sort
wild.
of
Yeah.
the comic community is also very divided.
Yep.
And it's politically motivated a lot of the times, and then there's subgroups of that, and it's like
Right.
trying to be neutral and interview both sides is tough when
Yeah.
kind of both sides are often very much like if you're not like I've literally been told this by people that if you're not actively like having a voice, you're complacent with the other side. So just like not talking or being neutral is actually you're on the wrong side. And I'm like, not in my case. Like
Yeah.
it's like I've been doing this for a long time, not the YouTube, but just like being a person with friends and
Right.
family and community and kind of like what we all strive for is basically
Right.
getting along with your neighbors. Like I can't imagine as if uh, especially, yeah, I could dive into all this, but
Yeah.
we'll go back to I'll have you just start talking about your career, but I do want
Yeah.
to start before comics because don't you make videos or you are
Yeah.
a director? Like, so like you're saying you're on the beach, like, do you surf? Did you do skate videos or how'd you break into all this stuff?
Right. So, yeah, my normal 9 to 5 is I'm a videographer for a tech company, and I also do freelance stuff on the side. So for me, it's and that's like making commercials, anything with the camera, any editing that needs to be done. That's what I do. So I really started that out of more similar to how I started with comics, out of ignorance and naivety. And
That's
so
how we all begin, I guess.
yeah. And so for me, like when I was looking at going to college, I honestly had not done much. I'd done some photography work, but not a whole lot. And I was looking at what to major in college, and I thought I majored in video production, and I thought, I mean, I've never done this before, but again, this is the ignorance. Something tells me I could be good at this. I don't know. I'll just try it out, and then lo and behold, stuck with it. Graduated, and then just went around doing different videos. Photography wise, got a little bit of good traction doing like skate videos, skate photography, and then it's just kept building and building and building connections and just keep going like that. And similar for comics, to be honest with you, because again, what got me into it was similar ignorance and naivety. I always wanted to be a comic book creator. And I really love storytelling. Like, to be honest, that's actually the biggest reason I am doing the job I currently have. That's the biggest reason I decided to get into video production. Wasn't necessarily movies, but was just being able to tell a story, whether that be through a marketing team, being through, um, I don't know, I mean, just as, again, marketing again, but like through marketing campaigns, short fun videos, short films, all that kind of stuff. So for me, with the comic book thing, I had a script that I actually wrote in college, um, that I had turned in for a class assignment called City of Demons, and it was supposed to be like a pilot episode of like a miniseries. And so I had that script around, and I just really, really liked it. And I was thinking to me, I was like, if I could do a comic, this would be the perfect one because it's 1920s, it's noir detective, meaning, and this is the practical side, meaning it would be black and white, so I could save costs that there and it still be natural, not looking like it is a cheap product.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, I thought the story was really solid. I really loved the characters, and I even went back to add more characteristics and make them a little bit more complex. And so I had the first sort of 60-page script. I adapted that into the first two issues. And that was the biggest learning curve because you find out how different the mediums of storytelling are. With a comic, you have to be much quicker to the point. You can't sort of feel your way in as much in some cases. In some cases you can, but you have to. The pacing has to be a little bit quicker.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
character work has to be a lot more direct. Um, so I wrote that and then collaborated with artists. Kingsley Zay, found him on social media, and then also found Nikki Powers on social media. And we create the first 10 pages, And I was very, very, proud of what we had created. And so we create the first 10 pages, send that off, and with marketing proposal, story arc proposal, um, so like a story synopsis, but like a pitch, essentially, like a tagline. And then along with a cover letter that explains the background of each person. And so initially, I thought that my skills as a videographer would be just a perfect transition from that to comics. But what I found out more was that I had to accept things that the comic book medium exclusively could accomplish that video can't, or like film can't, even prose writing can't. And that was a great, really great experience writing that first issue. And and so when I was looking for publishers, I actually watched your video where you talked about the top independent publishers to reach out to if you're a first time author. And I saw that, and you mentioned Blood Moon Comics. So I saw some, I was familiar with a lot of their work, their horror stuff. And so I was like, this could be, I mean, it's not horror, but it's totally kind of in line with what they would like to make.
It's a dark
So,
genre. Yeah.
yeah, right. And I was like so nervous because I was like, the title is City of Demons. And I was like, I've had to explain to multiple people, like, no, there's no like demons. It's like, it's a metaphor, because like it takes place in LA, City of Angels, City of Demons. Side note, I thought the title was actually possibly too on the nose. And then I never expected people to take it so literally. So that was an interesting discovery. But so I reached out to Blood Moon, and over the course of a few months, finally get accepted. And then flash forward, we're making a bunch of issues, and we have a bunch of issues on file. And I reach out to Keith Ramel, who was the head of Blood Moon, and I say, hey, when our pre-order is going to be open? And because this is about 2 months before our launch.
Yeah.
And he calls me back saying, hey, Parker, we're closing down. And I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no, like what happened? He's like, oh, have you heard about the news about Diamond? I was like, oh no. It was,
Yeah.
and it was kind of oddly like just ironic timing because just literally 2 days prior, I went on a podcast, Pages and Panels, where they asked me about if Blood Moon was going to be hit by the Diamond thing. And I said, well, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, so Blood Moon, so Blood Moon just shut down. But yeah, Keith Ramel's a great guy, super creative guy. Um, and so from then, I was just like at a loss because you have all these issues. And again, we're making 12 issues. I think at that point we had created 7. So we created all these issues, just sitting around. And of course, for me, spent money to make all this.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was sitting there like, oh my gosh, like what? Like really? This is 2 months before launch. And so I reached out to a guy on that Pages and Panels podcast saying, hey, do you know anyone that could possibly help me out or give me some sort of guidance on where to go from here? Because I've never been self-published. I've never, like, the whole comic space is completely like new to me from the creative side. And so I was like, just any guidance you possibly give. And he recommended me influencer named K-pop. And I asked her, said, hey, any recommendations? And she gave me like a laundry list. Like it was like I think it was like 15 suggestions of
Of
independent
publishers?
publishers. Yeah, publishers.
Okay.
And at the top was Wiseacre Comics, which is headed by Frederick Littles.
Okay.
Frederick Littles, who is came from the Godhood comics. So
Okay.
I had heard of him. Obviously because of the affiliation, he had done Magnus and the affiliation with Godhood. And so I was like, okay, I know of him, but he likes superhero stuff, and this isn't superhero related or even supernatural related at all. It's like a very gritty sort of, noir mystery, sort of like you're chasing after a serial killer, trying to find out why they're doing and really exactly how they're doing it. So I reached out to him, and a few days later, he came back saying he really surprisingly to me, said he really loved the pitch, really loved this. I submitted the first 2 issues, said he really loved everything we were showing him. And then it's just gone on from there. And then now we are launched. Our crowdfunding campaign is launched on Zoop, which is a comic book exclusive. It's pretty new, a comic book exclusive crowdfunding platform.
Yeah,
And
I wanted to
yeah,
dive a bit deeper onto that because I actually have an interview with the, well, I definitely like the Zoop reached out to me, and I'm gonna try to
Mhm.
figure out more details about some of the comics that they have live, like yours, along with like them and like what how they're different and variant. So, like from your
Right,
perspective, what made you choose them compared to going with traditional Indiegogo or Kickstarter?
right.
And like, did they reach or not they, but did you research or did someone recommend them?
Right. So that was actually a decision made by Frederick Littles, the publisher.
Okay.
And I believe he had I think it was some grievances that were still mounting up from Kickstarter. And we're still going to use Kickstarter for a lot of other books and probably for some of the future books of City of Demons. But some of these a little bit of growing frustrations. And he decided to reach out to Zoop because they had shown interest in launching or helping to launch a lot of the Wiseacre comics. And so he used mine as the guinea is using mine as the guinea pig. And he told me about it. And I'm not gonna lie, I was hesitant because I'm like, well, there's already you have a built community on Kickstarter that, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, is every time
pretty
he puts
strong.
something out there, yeah, it's almost 100% guaranteed to succeed. Like on Kickstarter, he's only had one project not hit his goal.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh gosh, and it's my first comic. I'm like, oh, so we'll see how Zoom goes. So far, it's been doing strong, and especially it's raised close to $1,300. We have 22 days left to
Nice.
go, and 1,300. And on a platform, we have no community or no like true audience.
Yeah.
So
That's all
that's
organic or whatever.
right. So it's super positive. Frederick has been super helpful with getting me on podcasts, and I've been reaching out to people like crazy, saying, "Hey, check this out," and all this stuff. Like I was with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just had a campaign too, so I was doing the same
Yeah,
thing. And it is an insane task to
yeah.
s s-
Have
yeah,
people
I've
believe in
been
it, especially from my end. They don't know who I am,
yeah,
so
exactly.
I
Yeah.
have to that page. I mean, thank goodness Kingsley, the artist, is an amazing artist because that's what sells it more than because you can't really judge the writing until you
No,
have the
yeah.
thing in your hand. So the art was super strong in issue one, and to be honest, it gets only gets better. Um, so that's obviously been the biggest selling point. The rewards have been a selling point. Having Weissaker tied to it gives it a little bit more legitimacy. Um, because so far it's been good. I really fingers crossed. Hope we reach that 2,000 goal and beyond. Um,
You've got 22 days. I want to say it's funny that yeah, I wrote actually. So my series Liquid Kill,
mhm.
um, that was originally called the Demon Army, and
Oh,
and the even before I had publishers, like the editors were like, "You got to change the name."
mhm.
I was like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah," because like you're saying that they're saying like
Yeah,
just like yours, it's there are no literal demons. It's not a
right,
literal demon army. It was a term that other characters referred to those people as because they
right,
were so ruthless. It was like it was like the nickname other people gave them, which later turned into like what people called the Liquid Army or the
right.
who and but yeah, I thought that was interesting and over again, unfortunately, it's like us as writers, the we are so far down the funnel of
Yeah,
like what all we can really do is it's from a marketing or trying to get word out there. It's like, yeah, how do I sum this up? Or like, how much does a log line really
right,
matter? Because in reality, it's like what really captures people, like from zero to where it doesn't matter what it is or whatever. It's the
right.
art. It's like they see
Yeah,
an image, or it's like the art, like an actual image, like the cover, and
yeah,
that and a killer title, and then the other thing is somebody else tells them about it. Like though it's like referrals and
right,
the art are 90% of what sells things or why people
right.
buy things. And the only thing that matters for us as writers is once we get them in the door, can we keep them there? Because that's what it's
Yeah,
like the artists, the art, the title, and the referral mode or whatever, or I guess you could say the referrals are our jobs. Like the writer has to do
Yeah,
such a good job that other people talk about it. Like the story is so good that they're like, "Did you see that? Like that was insane." And then they read the
yeah,
next issue and they're like, "It just keeps going. It gets crazier." And now I'm like, we have to really and to be somebody that writes so well that like you entrap someone to where it becomes like a drama that people want to be involved in is super
hmm,
tough. I mean,
yeah,
obviously art is too, but it's just to get it to step one is you. It's like you can't do it. It's like step one is
yeah.
really the art and the title. Like you have to get people to open the door in order for them to see what you wrote inside, and
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and there's a Tom McFarlane, to be honest, in some of his opinions on comics, I don't always agree with. He did have a really honest take where he said, "I can sell a book with great art and a terrible story, but I can't write. Or sorry, but I can't sell a great story with terrible art." And that I think is honestly true in the comic space. So there's that part we have to juggle, but at the same time, I don't think you're going to get repeat readers in the independent field specifically if the story is not engaging, if the characters are not engaging. Like the first issue
Exactly.
is, yeah, the first issue of City of Demons, it, spoiler alert, but really ends on the inciting incident for the rest of the series to keep you guessing because it's more of a character piece where my goal was and philosophy when approaching the series was character before everything. So the first issue is really about the lead character, Detective Short, because I want to get the audience on his side, understand the layers of psychological complexity that we're going to dive into as the series goes along. And so far successful. And I mean, so far from about 30 or so people I've heard, they really like it and it's been successful in that regard. But it's that part for me where it's like you're taking a chance right out the gate. And thank goodness for my end, the publisher is right, really loves what we're turning in. He's behind exactly what we're trying to do. And, but that's the part where you're like, okay, how do I make sure? And I think it's successful. How do I make sure by the second they finish the last page, they're like, oh my gosh, when's the second one coming out? So, so
Good
yeah.
job.
And how do I make sure that in the second one that they want to read the third one? So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
uh,
No, yeah.
it's
Yeah,
so,
it's it's overwhelming yet it's like it's comics are so available to jump into to
right.
where like you can produce everything yourself like you and I have done to where that but to actually make it a it's just like movies. We can make movies and
Right.
but making a movie that then like there's so many hurdles. It's like first you have to finish the film, and then you have to finish it
Yeah.
so well that it's like up to the like visual qualities of what the platforms, whether it be theatrical platforms or streamers or whatever, they need it to reach a certain spec. So it's just like with
Yeah.
comics, like you have to create it with a professional artist that can turn it in on time up to the specs. It's like now you have a professional product but now you have to get it in front of people. So now you have to get it with a distributor or a publisher that can get it in front of eyeballs that can then sell it. And like,
Yeah.
so then it's like now you're saying I need to write something that's so good that it's not only at the level standards of everything else with the best writers in the world that are
Hmm.
making professional content that it's on the shelves with them. I have to beat them in story and in
Yeah.
order for it to stand out and like capture continuous crowds. But what's cool is we can still do all that on our own. Like you don't
Yeah.
really need I've talked about this plenty of times in the past, but what's really cool about what we're doing now, literally you and I, is like we are our own gatekeepers,
Yeah.
and it's essentially like once you're in the game, you're kind of at the level as everybody else, where you can reach out to the panels podcast and you can reach out to publishers and they're going to listen to you and you're going to be able to grow it and you're going to be able to like quickly network without the need of agents or any of that, like any of the hard
Yeah.
part that it takes. And as long as you write the story, like
Yeah.
if you can write the story that is a crusher,
Mhm.
it's like it will catch on if you want it to, or like
Right.
if it's up to the quality or whatever. But
Well,
yeah, that is where it's hard to where it's like, but you still got to capture their eyes for that first campaign. You know, it's
well,
like
yeah.
I got to get 1,000 people to then tell their friends that or
Right.
whatever. That's it. But I still got to get that first 100 to get that first 1,000, and that's where it's like. I've tried many things, and and all that really has mattered is does the artwork and that first issue just crush? If
Right.
they don't, you're just not gonna make it.
Well, that's 100% true. And so it's been, again, like I think I've said before, but like, again, me and like Littles at Wiseacre were very, very confident on the first issue. And what we hope, and I think there's a good chance of this, is that the word of mouth will be
Yeah.
strong enough to keep it going. And again, because you're always nervous showing off this stuff. And for me, I worked so hard on trying to like outline it, and then halfway through, I threw away the outline because like, not feeling this. And I've always allowed a healthy level, I would say, of sort of spontaneity within writing, to where you discover moments with your characters. You discover little like maybe, hey, maybe we can put the characters actually in this situation, so it creates more conflict and more drama because that's what is going to keep me reading more, the reader reading more, and just playing around with that. Again, like the biggest and the best thing has been that so far almost everyone. There was one guy who tried to make it part of like a culture war thing, but anyway, there was so far it's been very, very positive. The reaction from people who've read preview issues, and the publisher has been extremely, extremely positive. And like he finished all our issues that we've had made, and he said he's like, "Oh my gosh, where's the others? Because I want to keep reading and I want to figure out who's the killer and whatnot." So for us, well, for me and the rest of the creative team, it was I see this as a way that I really generate interest and keep the reader hooked by guessing who the killer is. But what we've done as a little sort of twist is that it becomes sort of a question of what the motive is. And so through finding the motive, you eventually will find the killer. Um, and so, yeah, I'm very excited to see, well, hear your reaction. If you've, if end
Oh,
up
I'm
finishing the whole
definitely gonna
series. Yeah.
I'll back it physically and stuff like that. What is it? I think whenever I saw the campaign, it said it's a 12 issue miniseries, but you're saying not all of them are done. Is this sort of to where people can buy each individual issue, or like sort of just like all of them, or
Yeah.
what's your
So,
main core product that you're selling?
So the main core product, well, obviously for the moment for the campaign is the first issue, but the
Okay.
idea is that it's going to be sort of each individual issue will be back to launched. So you have 12 different issues, each with their own set of variant covers and all that jazz. And hopefully, and this is the part that, fingers crossed, is that it has a very positive reception because, again, everyone, and like, I don't mean to sound like hyperbolic, but everyone has a very positive reaction to what's being made. And so the goal is that hopefully the reaction of the sales are strong enough that we then combine it or compile it into essentially like a single graphic novel. Um, so
But
yeah,
you'll
but
do
I
a
mean that's
campaign for each issue going forward.
yeah, correct. Yes, correct.
That's the way to do it.
Yes,
So yeah,
and so
so you're if a goal of 2,000 for issue one, and then if it hooks, you'll get more
mhm.
people for issue two and grow it. And 12 issues down the line for sure.
Yeah, and
We'll
so it's
get
been
there.
I was on a podcast 2 days ago, and a guy told me he said that he was advised. I forget a guy named Doug Wagner. He was advised by Doug Wagner that if you're a new writer first time, you only do 3 or 5 issues for your first series.
Yeah, you went
And
hardcore going 12
yeah, and
right off the
so,
jump.
but I did not know any better. No one told me that.
No,
so,
yeah. I
and
didn't
so,
either.
so yeah, no one told me that. So I was like, oh, 12 issues. And they're like, oh, why 12? Because that's how my story's paced out. And I think all these moments will fit nicely at 12. And I was like, yeah, 12. I did not enter my mind, I thought about as 12 being short. right? Because I'm thinking about all the like, I mean, this is not
Yeah,
even the same,
30,
but like,
like, yeah, the normal runs
right,
of a Marvel series, yeah, or whatever.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, oh, this is pretty short. And then on that podcast, he's like, yeah, I was told by multiple people not to do that. I was like, no one told me, and Blood Moon believed in it, and Wiseacre. So maybe that means I'm doing something right. Um,
Well, from a
but
publisher's
yeah,
perspective, of course, we'll
yeah,
take all we can get. It's from the creator's perspective to
yeah.
where th that's what you do if you like the confidence has to be real high because you never because
Yeah,
12 issues is well more than one trade, so it's like if the
I've been
first
told that.
trade
I was like, oh, I guess it is.
if issue one
Yeah,
flops, trade one will
yeah,
flop, and that means you definitely, trade two and three are going to flop.
right.
12 issues, that's basically three, at least three trades, possibly four. But I mean, the there at the same time, I did the exact same thing, but I
Mm,
lucked out in that I did it as a web comic first.
okay.
So like and I didn't spend that much before I realized
Mm,
like, oh man, like I literally have been working on this for 2 years and I have like nothing to show for it as far as
mm,
I had a lot of learning experience, I guess, and I did have
right.
hands on Webtoon, but Webtoon is just like YouTube to where
Yeah,
1,000 followers is not even enough to get monetized, or it's like,
yeah.
so it's like, yeah, very difficult to actually. You have to really push. You have to push it out
Right.
every week, and keep the readers engaged because they're real readers. They
Yeah.
see this as like something that they're gonna scroll through every week as a new thing, just like YouTube. If I was really about on like whenever I first started and was really growing, I was pushing out a video a week, and each one I
Yeah.
was trying to do better than the one before it, and that worked. But it was such a grind. But as soon as you slow down, the audience forgets you. And if it's
Well,
not up to the quality of the previous ones or not really growing, then it's you don't get the new. You basically just start to lose some of the old, and you're not gaining any of the new because
right.
YouTube doesn't see it as a growing channel anymore. It sees it as
Yeah. It's been one of those things where it's like you have to be almost, and I mean this in the kindest way possible, but it's like you almost have to force it down people's throats. So
yeah,
you're like, hey,
yeah.
I'm still here. I'm still here. So on social media
It's
and all that stuff.
it's like
Yeah.
writing. I I'm always backing everything that I've written, and I'll see
Mhm.
how you. I haven't written any crime noir comics. I did
Mhm.
write a crime noir film, um, but I'm always trying to keep things subtle. So it's
Yeah.
almost not even telling you what's the opposite of on the nose, just like basically everything's sort of vague
Yeah.
and buried. And but then again, with comics, like you were saying at the very beginning, you've got to get your story out right away. Like you've got to
Yeah.
establish things like at a much quicker pace. And you have to repeat things. Things have to sort of call back to each other.
Yep.
And it is a totally different form of storytelling, of course, but that's where I would find it very hard to sort of, especially when you're writing like a crime mystery,
Yeah.
where you're literally finding in clues and things like that, to where how much do you make it really obvious to the reader, like this is the piece that matters,
Right.
and how much do you want to like just keep it in the corner of the panel?
Well, it's
Or
been
make it
a
almost like is that guy looking over the
right.
fence, or is there someone there, or is that a shadow?
Right.
Or do I want to make it obvious, like that's an eyeball looking through the fence
Right.
hole?
Well, it's been my situation with Ryan it is that again, when I approach Sea of Demons, people always ask about like more film noir, what's it like Multi Falcon or all that kind of stuff, or True Detective. And I say I look at it as more akin to like Walking Dead, like by Barbara Kirkman, in terms of it's very character centric.
Yeah,
Like the mysteries there as a back is really as a driving force to explore these characters and really to explore really the overarching theme is like grief and how the four main characters really cope with that or deal with that in ways that are destructive or possibly cope with it in the right ways. Um, it's been a situation to where, like you mentioned, like making clues obvious, to where again, because I came at the perspective of I want them to turn this into a mystery of motive, that I started like again, for anyone who doesn't know, the story sort of revolves around 1924 Hollywood and really is about the creation of how Hollywood became Hollywood, like the epicenter of American pop culture. So it's really like using that as an example to dive into topics that I just find really interesting, to be honest with you, and using that to have the reader keep asking questions of, okay, how's this tie here? How's this tie here? Oh, and they have like an aha moment later on, because the comic, and I'm proud to say this, really builds on itself in really cool and some dark ways. Because again, it really highlights a lot of the sort of predatory culture that Hollywood, especially towards women, has been known for. It's become out more recently, obviously with like the P Diddy situation, the Harvey Weinstein situation. But what I was, and I'm a history buff, so what I was really want to tackle was that culture has been around forever, even since the silent film era, which the comic takes place in, and really examine how a serial killer sort of string of murders that they target the top mafioso officials sort of ties into all of that and brings all these characters together to really come face to face with that sort of culture. And so that part has been fun because I don't feel like at least I don't think no one's told me this, but I don't think I've made anything super obvious towards one person or another person. It's been it's been like, okay, you get a clue, and then you find out this little hidden secret. Who does it connect to? You do not know immediately, and so you keep unraveling a possible motive for the murders, and it keeps unraveling, and then eventually you find the killer. So again, proud to say, only one person out of like 30 or so, not even the publisher, has been able to correctly
And
predict the killer. The
nice.
one person that was correct in their prediction was this close to getting the motive right. Like this close, like they were talking about. I was like, oh no, they're right there. And then it's kind of took a left turn. I was like, okay, we're good. So yeah,
They got one of the pieces correct, but not the full puzzle. So that
right.
I
They
do
did not.
find
Yeah,
pro writers do see everything. And, like whenever I try to get guidance on writing, or and I'll
right.
explain something, I often will be told like, yeah, that's too basic, or you're going over like the same
Uh,
beats
I
that
relate 100%.
dude.
Yeah, it's been a
But
situation like when you write a comic or write a story. The first question I would, if see if you relate, the first question I have when I get someone a script or a comic is, do you understand what happened? Like, does point A to point B make sense? Because if it
yeah,
doesn't,
yeah,
then I'm really, really screwed. So it's like, does everything told make sense? Do you comprehend what
yeah.
happened? Because
Do you
many
at
times
least
you're so,
just get it? Yeah, like yeah. Do
yeah.
you understand what
So,
happened? Don't even tell
yeah.
me if you liked it. Do you just know what happened?
Right.
Yeah,
And so it's been funny. One of my friends interpreted something as a clue when it wasn't a clue. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. They picked that out. But it's been weird. I saw that. I was like, actually, I think there's a way I could work this in, and that would be perfect. So I then added based on their reaction. I was like, okay, I'm going to add that in and just quickly as this as like sort of a. I can't spoil too much, but it's become a larger part than really a simple detail in the scene. So
yeah.
that part has been, yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
always been
what's.
fun. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. With comics, you are. It's very cinematic, and you're like the director to where you're
yeah,
choosing what to focus on. Like in
yeah,
movies, some two people could be talking, and then the camera is just slowly zooming towards a certain thing. That is it just for feel, or are they trying to
right,
tell me something by the fact that they're zooming in towards the pot in the corner of the room, like
yeah,
or what? And like it's same with comics to where sometimes what you're choosing to make the page aesthetically interesting can be
yeah,
interpreted, especially if you're writing like something like you're doing that's
yeah,
very centric on a mystery. But you're saying it's more about the character, but at the same time, everything good is like that.
yeah. That's
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 what you
my point of view.
learn writing is really that it's not about the plot. No one really cares about the
Right.
plot. The plot's the same in everything. It follows the same beats. What we care about is the characters and their slow build up or their slow
Right. Or
breakdown or whatever.
well, and that's exactly what issue one is. Issue one is establishing the central character, and I think people will really, really love it because he's then introduced to the larger mystery, and you're not entirely sure of all the specific details of what that is. But it's been circumstances to where the most recent issue I wrote, to be honest with you, I spent 3 or 4 pages side by side, sort of having the four characters reflect each other, like sort of drawing parallels and just using that as, again, not super integral to the plot, but having a nice moment to where like pacing is like, this is a moment where the readers just need to be able to breathe and just accept this. And this is like a thematic, I call it like a thematic moment. And whenever I do that, I've done that a few times throughout the series. I'm like one of the pages in the Zoop on that profile is black panel on top, super close up of the eye, less of a close up on an eye, and then a big reveal of the main character, Lucas Short, smoking a cigarette by a window. No dialogue, no nothing. It's just letting the reader sort of, and this is on the tail of flashback, sort of breathe with the character to see what is this guy like now. And those little character moments, I always, whenever I do it, I'm like, oh gosh, like Frederick's going to kill me. He's going to be like, where's the plot or something? And so far, he
No,
hasn't.
no, yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that
So
stuff.
yeah,
It's almost yeah, especially the I like the pacing to be more. I guess you could say artistic's a terrible term, but just more centric on the tone and feel,
right.
or
Especially with a
especially
noir, you have to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And,
that's cool.
and so it's
I'm
been,
pulling it up now. I'm taking a look real fast.
yeah, and so, again, another part that I want to say this because people will immediately a couple people online have immediately go, this is, I'm not going to even say the word, just like, part of the culture war, or whatever. So Lucas Short is a black detective for the LAPD, at least in the first issue. And so there were black officers, and this is a cool part of LA history that I decided to pull in. The first black officer was a guy I think named Marcus, who was, I forget the last name, who was 1918. And I think by 1924 they had 4 black officers. So that's a cool little part of history I decided to pull in,
Yeah, that's
um,
cool.
just so people know, like it's based on something real. So yeah,
Dang,
um,
yeah, that's interesting. It's funny that we were talking about at the start of this about generations,
yeah.
and I remember talking to my grandma who was born in the 1930s, and I was asking her, I'm such an idiot, but I was like, "You're like Boardwalk Empire, like that's you, that's the era that you grew up in." I was like, "Was it really like that?" I'm like in my late 20s asking her
Yeah.
these questions. Did you ever watch that show?
I only saw. I never really got into it. I think I only saw the first 2 episodes, and it wasn't bad. It just my attention got pulled
Yeah,
away.
it's actually a really good show if you ever
Hmm.
go back and get
Yeah,
into it. It's
I
it's
love
one of those where
Steve
each
Buscemi.
the seasons as they got further got better as it went along.
Okay.
But and same like yours, it follows real history and how crazy like what you're talking about old Hollywood is slightly before this, but like
Hmm.
literally just like a decade before that because yours takes
Right.
place in like the I guess the 20s or
24. Yeah.
yeah. So Boardwalk Empire is right in there. It's like
Right.
it's basically the Roaring Twenties, but right after like the bootleg era. So I guess that
Yeah.
was I thought that was 1930s, but anyway. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
there was I want to say there was both like black cops involved and of
Yeah.
course sort of gangsters, but it's also so close after the obviously our crazy history of the past.
Hmm.
Like I don't know what Jim Crow era is, but I'm assuming it's like right there.
Yeah.
And so there's like the tension there, but it's based
Hmm.
upon real history, and it's really interesting about how if you make that your lead character in that
Hmm.
time period, um, it's just drama out the
Yeah,
like it's
that's
gotta be
awesome.
perfect, you know?
It well, I like it. Like I want to know. So your approach to writing, like how many times do you have to like sort of like remind yourself, or does it come naturally at this point? You're like, I have to like almost consistently create drama, like this issue drama, like between these characters, like create conflict. Like, how much in your approach do you like almost have to remind yourself, or is that does it just come naturally now?
Nothing comes well, okay. I'm very judgmental of my own writing, and I also
Mm-hmm.
have a writing partner who, for the past almost 10 years, we write everything together, and bouncing things off of each other
Mm.
is a huge help because I don't write anything on paper until I've bounced it back and forth
Oh.
over and over again with my writing partner. But whenever I'm not doing that, and even whenever I'm actually sort of in the process of like you sort of think through a scene, or at least the way I've done it is like I'll have certain aspects that it's like I kind of have it to a T in my head. But then
Right.
once you start writing, then you kind of the flow of consciousness just goes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a lot out that way. But then I found out, over the years that a lot needs fine tuned after that. And to this day, I'm just like, like where it's just
Yeah.
there's different angles you should have taken. You almost could have like gone back to the drawing board completely to where it's like that scene did not match the rest of the story you wrote. Like it flowed in the moment, but in the greater scheme of things, when it comes to there are true like beats and pacing
Mm-hmm.
that really are. I was gonna get your take on this because what as viewers, readers, we
Yeah.
want something that's familiar and we almost want to try to solve it ourselves. Or like
Mm-hmm.
it's as if in order to reach sort of the flow of to where it makes things easy for people to read and what they like,
Mm-hmm.
um, it has to kind of match and hit sort of certain pacing tropes
Yeah.
and things like that. But you have to switch it up
Yeah.
perfectly,
Yeah.
and that's where I flaw all the time. Is that a good example is sort of my book It Eats What Feeds It, to where
Mm-hmm.
I followed. I had the tropes that people like, and then I threw them for a loop towards the end, and
Mm-hmm.
half the people loved that, and half the people were like, "You didn't follow the trends that I liked." Like it didn't the um what you sold. It's just like a trailer to a movie. Like if your
Yeah.
first issue is at a certain kind of feel, if by the end of it, or if it like has a different ambiance or like tone,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Oh yeah, no, people are gonna hate
then
you.
people will, and that's what I did was it
Yeah.
starts off with a feel good, happy go lucky. I'm sort of in a haunted house with a hot
Yeah.
woman to what's this weird emotional, and now it's houses are exploding and like it didn't always match what people started with. And that's where, yeah, to a lot that was, and that's what's cool about this is if people are sort of arguing about it, arguing's an
Yeah.
extreme term, but just conflicted in how it made them feel. I sort of see that as a good thing. Uh,
Well, yeah, because if because for me, it's like that means you made it. They connected with it so strongly that if you did something like, I guess, not saying you did, but like take a left turn, it's like that means they actually felt something. So
yes.
yeah.
My problem is I just don't know how to continue that.
Uh,
Or I can like when you're writing, you don't
mhm.
necessarily feel I I don't know the best term for just like how does this make me feel? Like is it making me
Yeah.
feel good, or like am I uh sort of receiving dopamine rushes, or like is it a revenge? If it's a revenge story, like I feel you want the guy to
Yeah.
take revenge. Like that's what you're going
Yeah.
after. But if you're writing that kind of a story, and so just to get back to your point where you're saying like how I guess sort of how much are you structuring or like really thinking
Right.
about that stuff, or how much does it come naturally? I do go back and look at like page by page Like,
Hmm.
does the feeling that I'm wanting still continue?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
uh, and if it's not there, because often you, I make this mistake all the time. You are trying to connect point A to point B, and you'll feel weird if you like, well, that doesn't make sense for them to
Yeah.
actually get to point B. So you want to be super logical about it, and sometimes that ruins the flow of whatever it is you were trying to do.
Hmm.
Like
It
if you're, yeah, anyway, you talk.
no, you're good. No, you're good. It was it reminds me oddly enough. So there's a part where one of my favorite mangas I've actually been introduced to was Vinland Saga. And so the if you have you read it at all?
No.
So Vinland Saga is like a sort of starts off as a like revenge sort of Viking quest where this kid's father gets killed by this Viking and then chases after him and all this stuff. But the twist is that the guy who killed his father becomes almost like a surrogate father figure, and it's this really cool thing. So it
Yeah,
starts as like revenge story, and then by the second, or yeah, I think by the third arc, it does a 180. The main character Thorfinn becomes a slave, and then it's about him learning how to farm. So it's like, and through that he learns essentially that there's more to him than just anger and aggression, and how to be like a sort of like a healthy male, and which I think we need a lot more stories like that
yeah, right.
nowadays. So, but it reminds me of that because a lot of people, I mean, it's generally very well received. It's great writing, but it's such a tonal shift where it's like action, 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 killing Vikings, all that stuff. To he's a slave on a farm, learning how to farm. He's like just working through his emotions. And for me, I think that's incredibly hard to pull off. And I think Vinland Saga does it
That's
well. But
I was gonna,
yeah,
and I might end on this note, but that's what I was gonna get to is that
hmm
what really great writers are sort of the
yeah,
things that stand out. The epics of our time and the epics of old
right,
are so exceptional that they've hit every beat and twisted in every turn, and they did it
exactly,
like
yeah,
that. And because those are exceptional, gifted pro writers, and not saying that we can't be that, but it's if
hmm
you're going after that, uh,
be careful.
it's super hard
Yeah,
because it's like, and it's just pop movies are a perfect example of writing a blockbuster pop beat by beat movie is you can hit all the beats and make it all work, and
right,
that's something that can be taught. You can
right.
teach somebody how to write an action movie that, or a typical buddy comedy or something like that,
Hmm.
and reach all the normal highs and lows and laughs, and it just follows the same structure, and it'll be good enough to where somebody that's just trying to eat a normal cheeseburger will enjoy that. But
Right.
like if you're trying to make just a popcorn blockbuster, write a comic like that, you can do it. But if you're trying to actually make something that sort of is exceptionally good and
Hmm.
hits emotional dramas that actually turns the
Yeah.
makes people really interested, and they don't have to be epic like dramas or weird
Yeah.
things. They can be like Harry Potter. Like it just captures such a tone that it makes you want to live in that world. And it doesn't
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
even be fantasy. It can be Norman Bates, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And but that's just super hard to do, and no one can really teach it. Like it comes from the
Hmm.
ether. And people have to pull it from the muses.
Right.
And that is something it's like trying to teach somebody how to meditate. Like you can teach people the steps, but you can't tell them what it's like to actually get to enlightenment or whatever, It
Well,
has
that's
to
the
be.
part where it's like there's a lot of this industry or a lot of storytelling where there is just a natural. It's going to sound pretentious, maybe, but it's like a natural sort of like part of you that like just speaks, and you don't really know what exactly is going to come out,
Yeah.
and you're just there's a part, at least for me, that's very intuitive where you're like you've mentioned you're like kind of feeling the story out. You're like, for me it's very emotional based, and then
Mhm.
I go back and make sure that okay, let's make sure it is structured enough.
That is, I
But
think, the
yeah.
key is it has to come from the soul, and
Yeah.
then structure it later. If you try to structure it, you'll never get the soul.
Right. And again, the large part for me is the spontaneity. So like I'm guarantee you there's a million people who will go and disagree with me. I have an outline for every issue. I do not that outline is not the Bible to me. That outline is okay, these are the beats to hit. Generally speaking, I'll keep that the same, but the way to each beat within each issue, I change almost all the time to some degree.
Yeah.
So because I feel it out, like right, like I feel like if you're a writer, at some point you're just like with the characters, you almost feel like they're real. So you're just like allowing them to live in this world and react the way they would react to it, and you're almost just writing just how you feel the characters would be. You're not. It doesn't feel like you're necessarily forcing too much, and that's the magic, at least for me, in terms of writing. It's just you feel like just oh my gosh, yeah, the character. Well, this situation, oh, he would react this way because of X, Y, and Z. You're not structuring it so much. You're just feeling like almost playing around with the characters.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, you're
that's the
in
fun
the
part.
mind of the character.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I've learned over time with comics that if I have a solid relationship with the artist, which is the way I like to do it,
Yeah.
I'm not just telling them like this is the script and this is gold, this is gospel. You do it page by page, as I say.
Right.
It's a free flowing like thing. If I had a splash on page 7 and they're like, dude, the splash needs to go on 4,
Right.
and it needs to be this, and then I'm like, yeah, go for it. The art, the flow, is there is a lot more open ended. Like it's not done till it's done. It's just like film.
Yeah.
You get it all out there on
Yes.
paper, then you film it all, but then they have to go through and edit it. And then you edit it with other people's music first. And then
Yeah.
they have someone write the new music over it to match your edit. Like
Mm,
I mean, that's not always how it's done, but that's like the common steps is like a
right.
film is edited to the music that's not going to be the final music a lot
Mm.
of times. And to
I
me, to
didn't know
edit
that.
that way, yeah, that's why you'll see so many movies that have almost exact same score because what they
Yeah.
do is they tell the composer, be like, this was edited to basically this song, make
Right.
something similar. And the
Oh,
composers are like, I can't, they basically do the same thing. And there's tons of copyright issues of it. But yeah, I mean, obviously working in film, I know how these things go. And I
it's super
also
stressful.
edited for
Yeah.
a while. And to me, the love of editing is like matching the film to the music. Like editing
Yeah.
film to music is way more fun than trying to edit to something that's not going to be the final score and then
Well, yeah,
have
that would make me
someone
mad. That
write
would
a
make me
score
aggravated.
over it. It's like
Yeah.
but point being is you're like the final edit is what's really like putting the finishing touch. Like that's when it's finally like you're taking the painting and actually turning it into
Hmm.
the magic, like the final thing. And like so like your script is long before the final touches are
Yeah.
ever made. And like we think when we're writing it like it's like as if this is some kind of blueprint that's going to be exactly, I mean, obviously it's got to be very close. And some people
Hmm.
do write it to where it's got to be like step by step, word for word, panel for panel. Obviously it's scripted
Yeah.
that way, but I like to keep it somewhat open ended to where the artist and I can go back and forth and adjust things as you finally start to flow through it. If you overthink
Yeah.
everything like I do and you have to make everything like visually flow and then be like, I don't like having the two bubbles here. Let's change it to, one. And that means you're changing the dialogue. Like you putting the
Yeah.
other dialogue somewhere. And, that might be sacrilegious, but whatever.
Well, it's exactly the same way with me and Kingsley working together. Kingsley already when I essentially like auditioned like 3 artists, the first 10 pages, and Kingsley brought and what I wanted was not obviously not just someone whose visuals worked well with the script, but someone who was going to bring something that I couldn't really put my finger on. Just an innate sort of quality that sort of brought the script to life. And he did that in spades. Like the whole like sort of my initial idea for the art was a like completely two tone, hard blacks, hard whites, similar to like Sin City style.
Yeah, yeah.
And he brought in the gray like the gray gradient,
It
give it
looks
a nice
great,
texture.
honestly.
Yeah,
Well
and his
done.
line work is clean, and so and his line effects, like you see it in the pages with the cars, are very strong. Again, it only gets better in the future issues. So and for him, he had like just little details where it's like I made that stylistically part of the comic. Like the panels all have that sort of scratchy white outlines, and I thought they provided energy to the paneling. I said,
That's
"Oh,
a
do
cool
that
way
for
to do
all
it.
of them. Yeah,
For
do it
sure
for
looks cooler
everything."
that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, uh, it gives it just that the tone,
yeah,
that scratchy, almost more authentic feel. That's how you know, oh, this wasn't like in the future we're gonna be saying, oh, that was AI. But to me, it's
oh
like
gosh,
it
I hope
doesn't
not.
feel.
Yeah,
It's not a template. People will
yeah,
literally buy comic book templates and just like fill it in, and it's like,
hmm,
ah, it's just so obvious that it was done like that, man.
right.
Like there's just no artistic freedom. Man, I could talk to you forever, but we've gone over an hour.
Oh,
And you're
yeah, it was
on,
great talking to you.
so it's actually even later your time, isn't it?
10:30, ten
Yeah,
thirty
yeah,
seven.
it's
Yeah,
9:30 here. So yeah, I gotta get the kids to bed. But the campaign looks awesome. I'm gonna try to get
awesome,
this out next week. So it should be for sure going live while you're still live. How many more days are
awesome.
left? 22, right?
22. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, to the audience, they'll be like, "That's wrong," because they're gonna be seeing this later. But still within the range. It's called City of Demons on Zoop, which is zoop.gg. Uh, and any finishing remarks? Who are you on social media and all that? Are you City of
Yeah.
Demons or do you go by your name?
Um, Mostly for the comic is City of Demons underscore comic. If you want to follow my personal account, sure. My personal account is underscore by dot Newman. That's mostly just where I post various artistic projects I do in my free time. Um, but yeah, so last thoughts again, everyone, please go support the campaign on Zoop. I think it's one of those projects where if you give it a shot, you will really, really dig it. And so I think you will really look forward to reading future issues. So again, we really need to support independent comics, especially with all the craziness with Diamond. So yeah, thank you everyone, and I really hope you support it.
Perfect. We'll end on that note.